Once again, it is your host, your friend, intellectual, voracious, and passionate about doing things that I never thought I would do on YouTube, as always. Now, as some of you may have guessed from watching some of the past stuff I've put on this channel, I know a little bit about pro wrestling. And if you know me off air, you know I know even more than what I show on air. And that's the reason why a lot of friends off air who are wrestling fans or maybe just casual wrestling fans or hear rumors or news or what they think is news will come to me for clarification sometimes. And I'll sit there and I'll talk their ear off for 30, 45 minutes. And they say, God, you should be doing this on YouTube. And I always said, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy on YouTube talking the wrestling rumors and everything because there's so much gossip and the people have their personal agendas, and I said that's not me. However, I've heard a lot of mistruths and half-lies about the situation of TNA Impact, and that's an ongoing thing in itself that always happens every week. You hear the same people telling you TNA's going out of business. We've been hearing it back since 2002 when they started. So basically today, I'm here to do what I thought I would never do, and I'm here to basically just clear up as much as I can about TNA Impact Wrestling, about their future, about their TV deal, maybe touch a little bit on their talent. I plan to go into this more in a later video when I talk about all of the wrestling organizations, or a couple of them at least. But let's talk about where TNA started. TNA started in 2002. They started on pay-per-view. They were on weekly Wednesday night pay-per-views. You'd pay $9.99, and you would tune in and you would watch them. And after a couple of years, they did get a deal with Fox Sports Net. Fox Sports Net gave them a pretty shitty TV deal and put them on Friday afternoons at 3 p.m. when no one was home. The funny thing was that the ratings for TNA Fridays at 3 p.m. were much greater than Fox Sports Net thought they were going to be. So they bumped them up to 4 p.m. and eventually they said, well, hell, let's put them on Saturday nights. So they had the 4 p.m. on Fridays, and then they also came on Saturday nights. The Saturday night replay actually did much better in the ratings than the original broadcast. The problem was it was costing TNA about $10,000 a week to just put on those TV programs. And the founder of TNA, Jeff Jarrett, at the time said, you know what, we'd rather have no TV deal than this TV deal. So they pulled TNA Impact Wrestling off the air and they just aired it on YouTube. This would have been around the time that Raven became the NWA World Heavyweight Champion in TNA. Eventually, Jeff Jarrett and TNA President Dixie Carter did manage to get a TV deal with Spike TV. Spike TV, the same network that previously hosted WWE Raw. Spike TV, the same network that before that was TNN and hosted and screwed over ECW. We all remember that. We won't go into that. But it was a new breed of people. It was Kevin Kay. It was Dixie Carter. They were going to work together. And for many years, they did. And TNA Impact Wrestling actually became the #1 highest rated weekly program on Spike TV. It became a flagship of Spike TV, so much so that it was used to promote any number of shows that ended up getting canceled on Spike TV. They said, well, hey, maybe if we have, Mike Tenay, maybe if we have Don West, maybe if we have Taz sit in the booth and try to promote these other organizations, these other TV shows, these other movies, these things will be successful. Turns out wrestling fans want to watch wrestling. Who knew? In any case, skip ahead to 2014. Skip ahead to some rumors. TNA's contract was coming up with Spike TV. And the question that the internet asked wrongfully was, is Spike TV going to re-sign TNA? As if to say that Spike TV was more of an asset to TNA than TNA was to Spike TV. If you know anything about Glory Kickboxing, if you know anything about Bellator, and if you found out those things in 2014, chances are you found them out through Mike Tenay, you found them out through TNA, because TNA promotes those things every single week during TNA's television main event. So, it looked like maybe TNA and Spike TV were going to part ways, but that was a couple of months down the line. In the meantime, Spike TV was going to continue broadcasting TNA, and TNA was going to take a little road trip. They were going to leave the Impact Zone in Orlando, even though it's the Impact Zone 2, and they were going to go on the road. And they went to Pennsylvania, and they went to New York, and they brought back the six-sided ring. And a lot of wrestling fans will tell you, and I agree with them, the work that TNA did in 2014 in New York City from the Manhattan Center was some of the best, most compelling wrestling we've seen in the United States for a long time. Some of the best stuff not only that TNA's done, but for any organization on TV. The passion of the wrestlers was clear. The passion of the announcers was clear. The passion of the fans was clear. Like I said, they brought back that six-sided ring. We can talk about that tag title series. We can talk about the Hardys. We can talk about Team 3D. We can talk about the Wolves, or maybe the American Wolves, depending on what you want to call them, Eddie Edwards and Davey Richards. That amazing series. We can talk about Bobby Lashley and those title defenses. We can talk about the fact that throughout the entire year, we saw guys who maybe didn't have opportunities before, brother, if you know what I'm talking about. Guys like Magnus, guys like Eric Young. We see Bobby Roode coming back into the main event fray. A-double Austin Aries back in the picture. And it's been great. Guys like Loki, guys like Homicide coming back. Samoa Joe winning the X Division title, the first belt that he's held, the first singles belt in a long period of time. We also saw the exit of some great talent. We saw the exit of some people who a lot of people would say, without them, TNA can't survive. We saw the exit of AJ Styles, who, yes, did part ways with TNA when his contract expired. Dixie Carter and AJ Styles could not come to contract negotiations that both felt were in their best interest. AJ Styles goes over to Japan. AJ Styles becomes, hell, let's face it, the top American wrestler in Japan, captures the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship for New Japan Pro Wrestling. There goes AJ Styles. We can also talk about a TNA Hall of Famer, the Icon Sting. Sting leaves. Sting decides he's going to New York. There goes Sting. We can also talk about Kurt Angle, who we found out just a couple of days ago did decide, and people thought he was going to jump ship. Kurt Angle did decide recently to re-sign with TNA Wrestling, but let's face it, in 2014, Kurt Angle, for the most part, due to injuries, sat on the sidelines. You would see him on TV 3 or 4 minutes per television event, and it was in the role of a general manager or a commissioner. He was making matches, he was doing interviews, he was not wrestling. So you can almost say Kurt Angle wasn't there. The result of AJ Styles not being there, Sting not being there, Kurt Angle for the most part in terms of wrestling not being there, was not what a lot of people predicted. Because actually TNA's ratings went up. Actually more people tuned in to watch TNA. But let's talk about the TV deal. Let's talk about what I wanted this to be about. The first thing that people have to understand is that the people who pointlessly hate on TNA, many of them being people who are fans of one organization and will hate on any other organization and only for whatever reason think TNA's the only other organization, which is wrong. There's many other organizations for you to hate on. You could go hate on Ring of Honor. You could go hate on Shimmer, Shine, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, hate on Lucha Libre AAA or Lucha Underground as it's known now on television in the United States, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Noah, Big Japan Pro Wrestling. In any case, let's talk about the shitty TV deal that TNA had with Spike TV. And I gotta be honest with you, Dixie Carter really taken the high road to the point where I expect the TNA talent to still compete on Spike TV and Bellator, and I expect TNA to still promote Bellator and Spike TV even as they go over to their new television network. I worked a little bit in television, and the thing you've got to understand about making money in television is that it's all about the ratings. The more people who tune in, the more money you can charge the people who air ads, the sponsors, the commercials, and as a result, your television entity makes more money. The deal that TNA signed with Spike TV, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know everything, but this is something that a lot of people don't tend to know, and I don't know when this deal was renegotiated, but I know the deal that TNA signed with Spike TV was a horrible deal. It was a deal where TNA would go on Spike TV. Spike TV did some polling and said, wow, okay, people want to see guys like Kevin Nash. So Spike TV went out and they hired guys like Kevin Nash and some of the big name guys who wrestling fans were used to, which also should shut down a very popular lie that's persisted, a lie that people like Petey Williams and Sanjay Dutt were fired because TNA couldn't afford them, yet they could afford people like Kevin Nash and they could afford people like Sting. What you need to know is a lot of those big name guys, their checks either completely or a majority of their checks were picked up by the network, were picked up by Spike TV. Whereas guys like Petey Williams and Sanjay Dutt, they were being paid for by TNA. In any case, this deal that TNA signed with Spike TV was one where TNA would have a time slot. They'd go on the air every week. But guess what? The ratings didn't matter to TNA. No, the ratings mattered to the network. TNA couldn't give a damn because, to be honest with you, for a long time, what the ratings signified for TNA is, hey, this many people are watching, and maybe we can make money from promoting our untelevised events. Maybe we can make money from promoting our pay-per-views or selling merchandise, because the actual money that the commercials, that the sponsors are paying, doesn't go to TNA with the TV deal that TNA had signed with Spike. All of that money went to Spike TV. Let me say that again. TNA had commercials airing during their broadcast, and unlike everything else on TV, the money didn't go to them, it went to the network. That was the shitty deal that TNA had signed with Spike TV. That brings me to my next point. TNA announced earlier this month, Dixie Carter did, president of TNA Wrestling once again, announced that they would be jumping ship and they would be going to Destination America, part of Discovery Networks, the fifth fastest rising cable network in the country, a global market that has television all over the globe, and I imagine TNA will be syndicated in more than just the 120 countries it's in now. I imagine that Spike TV will be sitting there with Bellator and thinking, what the hell did we do? At the same time, TNA has more than one weekly television event, more than one monthly television event. They have TNA Classics, they have TNA Explosion. There's a lot of TNA properties that don't air in American cities because Spike TV didn't want to let them. I believe we're going to see that at Destination America. Now, the haters are still going to say Destination America is a smaller channel than Spike TV. This is a step backwards for TNA. And to that, I can only give you the truth. To that, I can only tell you, what did I just tell you about who was collecting the money from the sponsors? It was the network. Now, I don't know about this, but I've got to believe that Spike TV is going to be sitting there wondering what they did, whereas TNA is going to be collecting money from the commercials over at Destination America. Like I said, when they were on Spike and I knew that they had that shitty TV deal, TNA could go be on the Golf Channel and they'd be making more money. So what you're going to see now is a TNA where the wrestlers are getting paid more. You're going to see a more healthy work environment. And you're going to see more TNA programming. You're going to see more advertising, more marketing for TNA. Because the big problem with TNA had always been they didn't have the budget to market. Some people would say it's the best wrestling television product you're going to see on TV. I don't know that I would disagree with that. But if no one knows you're on, if you're in an organization that seems like it's in witness protection, the ratings are not going to be there. So that's the truth. That's not me putting spin on things. That's not me blatantly saying that, Well, because that's not the organization I grew up with, I'm going to bash them. That's me giving you the truth, so now you've got more facts about this situation. Kurt Angle has re-signed, like I said. You're going to see a healthy Kurt Angle. You're going to see a Kurt Angle that now, maybe in the last 2, 3, I think he'll stay a little bit longer, maybe 5 years of his career, he's going to be hungry and he can still go. The roster that TNA has is a younger roster. It's a hungry roster. It's a talented roster. And TNA has stacked its roster so every single division has amazing talent. Every division classified by the different championship belts has amazing talent. So there's some food for thought. I never thought I would do this, but this is the kind of thing I do off air when my friends ask me about professional wrestling. Leave your comments in the comment section. I will try to get back to you. Hit the like, hit the comment, hit the subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Arachnid Soul, and I will catch you guys and girls later.